For decades, we thought we knew the predator. Apex hunters, technologically advanced. But what if their deadliest secrets lie not in their weapons, but in their very DNA? Predator. Badlands hints at something far more profound than just a hunt, a biological mystery that could rewrite everything we understand about their origins and their most terrifying adaptations. We're about to look beyond the mask, beyond the hunt, into the very genetics of the Yautja species itself. Because Dek isn't just different because he's young. He might be different because of something much, much deeper. Let's dive in. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little different with Predator Badlands. We've already covered the ending, the Easter eggs, what it all means for the franchise. But there's a layer to this film that nobody's really talking about yet. The genetics, the biology, the anomalies. See, Dek isn't just a runt because he's small. The film drops some fascinating hints that there might be something fundamentally different about certain Yautja bloodlines. And when you start connecting the dots across the entire franchise, from the super predators and predators, to the feral predator and prey, to the genetically enhanced upgrade predator in the predator, a pattern starts to emerge. What if the Yautja species isn't as unified as we thought? What if there are lost tribes, genetic offshoots, and evolutionary branches that the main Yautja clans have tried to erase from history? Buckle up, this is going to get deep. First glimpses of the Badlands predator. Let me show you something. This is Dek from Badlands. Now compare him to the jungle hunter from the original Predator. Notice anything? The differences are immediately striking. Dek is smaller, yes, but it's not just about size. Look at his bone structure. Traditional predators have that pronounced flat forehead that rises to two ridges on the sides. It's one of their most distinctive features. Dek? He barely has it. His forehead is smoother, more rounded, almost juvenile. His mandibles are less developed. His skin is lighter, less mottled, with fewer of those distinctive patterns we've seen on veteran hunters. Even his dreadlocks sit differently. Shorter, pinned back, less elaborate than the flowing locks of established warriors. Now, the film tells us Dek is young, a youngling in Yautja terms, basically their version of a teenager. So initially you'd think, okay, he just hasn't fully matured yet. And that would make sense, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Look at the feral predator from Prey. That was also a younger predator on his first major hunt, right? But his bone structure was completely developed, massive forehead ridges, fully formed mandibles. He looked every bit the traditional predator, just with more primitive gear. Or look at the young bloods from the Predators film, Tracker, Falconer, even Celtic and Chopper from AVP. They were young, inexperienced hunters. But physically, they had all the hallmarks of their species. The bone structure was there, the musculature was there. So why does Dek look so fundamentally different? The film describes him as a runt. But throughout the entire Predator franchise, we've seen exactly two other runts mentioned in the expanded lore. Manda and Shorty. Both were ridiculed for being short, but they still had typical Yautja features. They were just smaller versions. Dek isn't just smaller. He's structurally different. His facial proportions are closer to human than any predator we've ever seen. His eye sockets don't slope downward with that perpetual glare. He has a more sympathetic appearance. And according to the lore, this was deliberate. Dan Trachtenberg wanted audiences to connect with Dek, to see him as a protagonist. But what if there's a lore reason for it? What if Dek's appearance isn't just a design choice? What if it's hinting at a genetic anomaly within his bloodline? Think about what his father Njor says. He doesn't just reject Dek for being weak. He literally orders his son Quay to kill Dek, to eliminate him from the gene pool entirely. That's not just disappointment, that's eugenics. That's someone trying to prevent a specific genetic trait from spreading. Why would a clan leader be so desperate to eliminate a runt unless that runt represented something more dangerous than just being small? Unless Dek's existence threatened the genetic purity of the clan? Genetic drift or engineered evolution? Alright, so we've established Dek looks different, but let's dig deeper into what makes him different and why it matters. First, let's talk about the physical deviations we can observe. Bone structure differences. Dek's skull lacks the pronounced cranial ridges common to all other predators. His eye sockets are positioned differently, giving him binocular vision more similar to humans than the wider set eyes typical of Yautja. His mandibles, while functional, are less developed and don't extend as far from his face. Skin pigmentation. Dek's skin is noticeably lighter and smoother than veteran predators. Traditionally, Yautja's skin ranges from dark olive to mottled gray-green, with distinctive patterns that deepen with age. Dek's skin looks almost fresh, unblemished, like his body hasn't fully developed the protective layers seen in older hunters. Musculature and build. While this could be attributed to youth, Dek's build is far leaner than even young predators we've seen. The super predators from Predators were described as the difference between dogs and wolves, more muscular, more aggressive. But even the regular predators are massively built. Dek looks almost fragile by comparison. Physiological quirks. Here's something subtle that most people missed. When Dek loses his equipment and has to adapt, he does it remarkably well. Too well, actually. He creates organic armor, fashions weapons from native creatures, even gets that acid-spitting slug to function as a plasma caster substitute. That level of improvisation and adaptation. It's not typical Yautja behavior. The Yautja are technological hunters. They rely on their gear, their ships, their advanced weapons. As Isabel notes in the Predator Hunting Grounds game, the Yautja don't have engineers. If their tech breaks, they abandon it. They don't really understand how it works, they just know it does. But Dek, he's a maker, a creator. He thinks like a tool user, not just a tool user. That's a fundamentally different cognitive approach. So now we have to ask, what could cause these differences? Theory 1. Geographic isolation and evolutionary divergence. The franchise has established that different predator clans exist in different regions of Yautja Prime. The feral predator from Prey was explicitly described by Dan Trachtenberg as being from a different hemisphere and a little bit of a different breed. In evolutionary biology, geographic isolation can lead to rapid divergence. If Dek's clan has been isolated from the main Yautja population for thousands of years, maybe on a remote continent of Yautja Prime, or even on a different colony world, they could have evolved differently. Environmental pressures shape species. What if Dek's ancestors adapted to an environment that didn't require massive size and strength? What if they developed in conditions where agility, intelligence, and adaptability were more valuable than raw power? This would explain why Anjor sees Dek as such a threat. Not because Dek is weak, but because Dek represents an evolutionary branch that challenges the traditional Yautja model. He's proof that there's another way to be a successful hunter. A way that doesn't rely on brute force and advanced weapons. Theory 2. Genetic engineering gone wrong. Or right. But here's where it gets even more interesting. What if Dek's differences aren't natural at all? The Predator franchise has already established that some Yautja engage in genetic modification. The upgrade Predator from the Predator was literally augmented with DNA from multiple species to make him bigger, stronger, faster. The film revealed that there's a faction of Yautja who believe in using genetic engineering to improve themselves. What if Dek's clan represents the opposite end of that spectrum? Not enhancement, but refinement? What if someone experimented with creating a different kind of predator? One that's smaller, more agile, more adaptable. One that could infiltrate, improvise, survive without reliance on technology? Think about it. The super predators and predators were described as a different subspecies entirely. Larger, more aggressive, with a blood feud against the traditional hunters. They represented one evolutionary branch. What if Dek represents another? But here's the darkest possibility. What if Dek's genetic makeup isn't just unusual? What if it includes DNA from other species? We know from the Predator that Yautja can incorporate foreign DNA. The upgrade Predator had human DNA spliced into his genome. The novelization of various Predator stories mentions that the Yautja sometimes collect more than just trophies. They collect genetic material from worthy prey. What if Dek's ancestors incorporated DNA from exceptionally clever, adaptable species they encountered? What if his more human appearance isn't coincidental, but the result of hybridization generations ago? That would explain why Njor is so determined to erase Dek from the gene pool. It's not just about size, it's about genetic purity. Dek might be living proof that the Yautja aren't the pure warrior race they claim to be. He's evidence of contamination in their precious bloodline. The clans we've never seen. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. The Predator franchise has introduced us to multiple distinct clans and factions. The Jungle Hunter clan, traditional honor-bound hunters. The Super Predator clan, larger, more aggressive, at war with the traditionalists. The Elite clan, legendary hunters subordinate only to the Council of Ancients. The Dark Blade clan, known for highly advanced weapons. The Lost Tribe, the famous group from Predator 2. Bad Bloods, rogues who've abandoned the honor code. But here's what's fascinating. The franchise also mentions clans that we've never actually seen. Clans that are only referenced in passing, clans that have been lost to history. The Lost Colony clan is one example. According to the comics, a Predator ship crashed on Earth 14,000 years ago. The survivors established a society in the Andes Mountains and lived there for millennia, completely cut off from other Yautja. They developed their own culture, their own way of life. They had families, children, entire communities. When Superman and Batman eventually encountered them, they were described as being noticeably different from typical predators. Smaller, less aggressive, more communal. They cooperated in ways traditional predators don't. Sound familiar? What if Dek's clan is similar? What if they're descended from a group that was isolated, either by accident or by design? A group that evolved away from the mainstream Yautja culture and developed different traits? The film drops hints about this. Look at those giant four-armed statues on Yautja Prime in the opening scenes. Those don't look like any predator we've ever seen in the films. They're massive, with multiple limbs, almost godlike in appearance. Dan Trachtenberg has suggested those might be female Yautja, matriarchs. But what if there's something else? What if they represent an older form of the Yautja species? An ancestral variant that modern predators evolved from, or branched away from. And here's where the ending of Badlands becomes crucial. Dek's mother is coming. We've never seen a female predator in the films before. The lore suggests they're larger than males. With additional limbs in some depictions, they hold positions of power as matriarchs. But what if Dek's mother isn't just powerful? What if she represents a different genetic lineage entirely? What if the film is setting up a reveal that there are multiple subspecies of Yautja, each with their own territories, their own genetics, their own way of hunting? Think about it from a biological perspective. The Yautja have been spacefaring for millennia. They've colonized multiple worlds. They've adapted to different environments. It would be strange if they hadn't diverged into multiple subspecies. On Earth, humans spread across the continents and developed different physical traits in response to local environments. Why wouldn't the Yautja do the same across an entire galaxy? Hidden conflicts in Yautja society. Now let's connect this to the larger mythology. Because if Dek represents a genetic anomaly or a lost tribal lineage, it recontextualizes conflicts we've already seen in the franchise. Remember predators? The super predators were at war with the traditional jungle hunter clan. Nolan describes them as the difference between dogs and wolves. He makes it clear this isn't just a cultural disagreement. It's a fundamental conflict between two factions that see each other as lesser. The super predators even captured a traditional predator and strung him up, crucified style, on their game-preserved planet. That's not just rivalry, that's extermination. They're trying to prove that their way, bigger, stronger, more aggressive, is the superior evolutionary path. But what if there are more than two factions? What if the Yautja species is actually splintered into multiple competing groups, each believing they represent the true predator ideal? The traditionalists, jungle hunters, believe in honor, ritual, and one-on-one combat. The super predators believe in raw power and dominance. The genetic purists, like Njor's clan, believe in maintaining strict bloodline standards. The adaptives, possibly Dek's lineage, believe in evolution and change. And perhaps there are others we haven't even met yet. Lost tribes scattered across the galaxy. Variants that have been erased from Yautja history because they didn't fit the narrative of what a predator is supposed to be. The Badlands itself, the planet Genna, might be significant in this context. The film describes it as the deadliest planet in the universe. Countless Yautja have gone there to hunt and died. But what if Jenna serves another purpose? What if it's a testing ground? A place where the Council of Ancients sends predators they consider problematic? Dek was sent there to die explicitly. His father wanted him gone. But what if Dek isn't the first anomaly to be sent to Jenna? What if the planet is littered with the remains of other genetic variants, other lost tribe members, all eliminated under the guise of proving themselves worthy? And here's the really dark possibility. What if the Kalisk, that supposedly unkillable apex predator, was placed on Genna by the Yautja themselves? What if it's not native to that world at all, but was brought there specifically to ensure that anyone sent to hunt it would fail? Bud is the Kalisk's offspring, and Bud bonds with Dek, sees him as family. What if the Kalisk species has some kind of genetic recognition system? What if it can sense something in Dek that's different from other predators? Something that makes Bud accept him as clan? These are the questions Badlands raises but doesn't fully answer. And that's what makes it so fascinating. The bigger picture. So what does all of this tell us about the Predator universe? Where is this story going? First, it suggests that the Yautja species is far more complex than we've been led to believe. They're not a monolithic warrior culture. They're a fractured species with competing factions, hidden histories, and genetic secrets they'd rather keep buried. Second, it positions Dek as potentially the most important predator in the franchise. Not because he's the strongest, far from it, but because he represents change evolution, the future. By the end of Badlands, Dek has rejected his father's clan. He's formed his own family with Thea and Bud, an android and an alien creature. He's proven that cooperation, adaptation, and intelligence can be just as effective as raw power. He's rewritten the Yautja code without even trying. And now his mother is coming. A figure who represents the old order, the established power structure, possibly the very embodiment of Yautja tradition and genetic purity. The confrontation we're being set up for isn't just about family drama. It's about the future of the entire species. Will the Yautja continue down the path of genetic elitism, eliminating anyone who doesn't fit their standards? Or will they evolve, accept diversity within their ranks, and become something new? Third, this opens up incredible possibilities for the franchise. Imagine a film where we meet multiple predator subspecies, each with their own culture, their own hunting style, their own genetic quirks. Imagine a story about the lost tribes, the exiled clans, the genetic variants who've been hiding in the shadows of Yautja society. We could explore the ancient history of the species, how they evolved, where they came from, what events led to their current fractured state. We could see the Council of Ancients and learn what secrets they've been keeping. And most excitingly, we could see Dek become a symbol for change, a leader of the outcasts, the runts, the anomalies, all the predators who've been told they're not good enough, not strong enough, not Yautja enough. Because here's the thing, Dek survived Genna. He defeated the unkillable Kalisk, sort of. He outsmarted Wayland Yutani. He killed his father, and he did it all while being exactly what the traditional Yautja would call weak. That makes him the most dangerous thing to the established order. Proof that the old ways are wrong. Hidden clues in the film. Let me point out some details in Badlands that support this genetic anomaly theory. Things that are easy to miss on first viewing. The trophy wall. In the opening scenes, we see the trophy wall in Quay's ship. There's a human skull, a T-Rex skull, even an Independence Day harvester skull. But look closely at the back of the wall. There are several skulls that don't match any known species. One appears to have a similar bone structure to Dek's head. Smoother, less ridged. Are those the skulls of other anomalies who were hunted down? Genetic variants that were eliminated? The language differences. The Yautja language created for this film was designed to be physiologically accurate. No lip sounds because predators don't have lips, but Dek speaks it slightly differently than his father. Subtle variations in pronunciation, almost like an accent. Is this just acting choice, or is it hinting that Dek's vocal structure is slightly different? The organic plasma caster. When Dek creates that makeshift shoulder cannon using the acid spitting slug, watch how naturally it bonds with him. The creature doesn't resist. It accepts him immediately, almost like there's some kind of biological compatibility that makes the symbiosis easy. Could Dek's genetic makeup include traits that make him more compatible with alien biology? Thea's analysis. At one point, Thea examines Dek after he's injured. She makes a comment about his unique physiology. Now, it's easy to miss because she says it in passing, but it's there. She's surprised by something about his biology. What did she notice that we didn't see? Yor's obsession. Why is Deck's father so determined to kill him? It would be one thing if he just exiled Deck or cast him out, but he literally orders a fratricide. He wants Deck dead so badly he's willing to destroy his own family. That level of desperation suggests he knows something about Deck's genetics that we don't. Something that terrifies him. So there you have it. Predator. Badlands isn't just a story about a young hunter proving himself. It's a story about genetic anomalies, lost tribal histories, and secrets that the Yautja species has been hiding for millennia. Deck might be a runt. Or he might be the next stage of Yautja evolution. He might be a random genetic mutation. Or he might be the last descendant of a lost tribe that was nearly erased from history. We don't have all the answers yet. And honestly, that's what makes this so exciting. Badlands has opened up a corner of the predator mythology that we've never really explored before: the biology, the genetics, the hidden diversity within a species we thought we understood. And with Deck's mother on her way, possibly representing a completely different genetic lineage, we're about to learn a lot more. Whether it's in a sequel to Badlands or in other entries in the franchise, this thread isn't going away. The predators aren't just hunters. They're not just warriors. They're a complex species with a messy, complicated history full of genetic secrets, lost tribes, and evolutionary branches that have been fighting each other for supremacy since before humans even existed. And Deck, he's just cracked that secret wide open. What do you think? Is Deck a genetic anomaly? Is his clan descended from a lost tribe? Or is there something even deeper going on? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into predator biology and lore, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more franchise breakdowns coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes being different isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's the future.